I have a motion by Board Member Baker and a second by Board Member Parker. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving on to approval of agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Board Member Ryder, a second by Board Member Tolke. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. There were no new conflicts of interest to report. Move on to 7A through D, approval of consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
I have a motion by Board Member Baker, a second by Board Member Parker. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, items 7A through D, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll move on to the reports of the President. Thank you, Rich.
Chairman Mickelson, President Mickelson, excuse me, members of the board, obviously not President Griggs, but Rich Clune, Vice President of Finance. President Griggs is at another meeting. Will probably join us a little bit later in this session, but I wanted to kick off the reports for today. And the first one you have before you is a report of our Student Government Association, and we have with us our student advisor, student government advisor, and a couple of the student government leadership representatives. So I'll have them come forward, introduce themselves, and have them tell you a little bit more about their activities and what they do for Southeast Tech and what happens on campus. So I'll turn it over to them.
Yeah, come on up. And I'm just want to sing the praises of a couple of our staff members too who are with us today. So Chelsea Reich and Elizabeth Harder. So at Southeast Tech, what's kind of unique is that when our students come in, they are assigned a academic advisor, a faculty member, but they also are assigned a student success advisor. And so Chelsea and Elizabeth are student success advisors. And then the great thing about higher ed is, you have lots of slashes in your title. So they advise the students, they teach our student success seminars, they register students, and then these two also work with the Student Government Association, plan everything from intramurals to Zumba to all those fun activities on campus. So they do a great job, and they're here today with a couple of the executive members of our Student Government Association. So I just can't say enough good things about this group. So thank you.
Thank you. So my name is Francine Verpollen. I'm a second year in the Surgical Technology program, and I am this year's Vice President of the Student Government Association.
Hi, I'm Shelby Clark, and I am also a second-year Surg Tech student, and I am the Social Chair Executive. I just want to say thank you for letting us be here today to present to you what we do in SGA.
So this is kind of just the executives that we have this year. You can kind of see the different programs that everyone is in, and everyone is, I think, a second year. So, yeah. So we have someone that runs campus improvements, and we do a bunch of different projects that are supposed to benefit campus and help improve campus, basically. So we have some long-term projects. So like the disc golf course is actually a 3-year project, and the land surveying program mapped the course, excuse me, and the turf management program put the baskets in. And the final phase is to put the tee boxes in, and that should be done in 2020. We also have the housing proposal, and that they're actually working on right now to expand housing. So I don't know if you guys know, but there is, on-campus housing, and we're looking to expand that so we can have more students on campus. And then another long-term project is the eco-friendly water bottle fountains. They're kind of the ones that you hold underneath the water fountain, and that was initiated this spring, and we hope to keep going with that. So some of the short-term projects, we are looking to get some handicapped accessibility into the hub. It's a future proposal that we're currently working on in campus improvements. And we also had the parking lot restripped and potholes filled, and that was done this summer. So, yeah.
So next we have intramurals, which we personally participate in. There is volleyball and then basketball in the winter, and we actually just finished up with volleyball. We loved it because it's just a good way for us to get out of school and kind of stop doing some homework, you know, take a break, kind of relax. We did have 18 teams. We do different theme nights, like you can see there was Neon and Hawaii, USA, and they were just different themes every week, which made it really fun. And if you had the best dressed, you get a prize, you know, as a gift card to our bookstore or something like that. We really loved it, just a way to get a break, and it was really fun for us.
And we also have student clubs, and these are all student ran, so there's not really anyone that, I mean, they kind of oversee everything, but it's mostly student ran. So we have the American Sign Language Club, we have Campus Crusades for Christ, Gamers Club, Roots, Multicultural Club, Southeast Tech Pride, Veterans Club, and Yoga. And like I said, these are all student ran, so they usually meet, kind of depends on the club, but some of them meet weekly and some of them meet monthly. It kind of just depends on the club. So. And those are some more of the clubs right there. So. And so this is an example from the Roots Club. They do different ethic values and holidays and that sort of thing, and they promote diversity. So an example that they did was they did a Day of the Dead display. So different things like that they do for Southeast Tech. And then Student of the Month, and we also do Employee of the Month. It recognizes students and faculty for their hard work and dedication at Southeast Tech. So this is when someone nominates them by another student, or it could be another faculty member, and then it's voted by us, the executive board, and then at the next General Assembly SGA meeting, we just give them a plaque and we give them special recognition, and then this year's winner also receives like a free parking spot. So I know parking's kind of tough sometimes in school, so.
Okay, so one of the events that we put on during the school year is the fall picnic. As you can see, we do it at the beginning of the school year just to kind of kick off and get everybody together so that they can start to commingle and kind of see who they're going to be with for the next year. We did have Pavo serve, which is an on-campus food service, thank you, I couldn't find the word, food service that we have, and they served over 900 students and faculty. We had different groups like the National Guard, the Army, representatives from USF come and have a booth and talk to students, and had different activities like the axe throwing, joisting, and basketball, and then it was just a good opportunity for everybody to get to know each other. And then another event that we have at the beginning of the school year, usually it's in August, is we have a backyard bash. This is a yearly tradition that we have. It's mostly for the students that live in the housing because it's held at the student housing in the back area. We have yard games, and then Big Rig's Barbecue usually caters for us, and then we do a movie. Usually we project it on a big screen outside and everybody can kind of sit around in the grass. This year, because of the weather, we did have to move it inside, but luckily we have a theater that caters to that. So this is just another event for everybody to kind of get together, and families are welcome, faculty and students.
Okay, so the newest thing that we just did is the laundry basket drive. We decided to name it Feeding Southeast Tech. So it's a campus-wide drive to help those in need. And it includes like non-perishable foods, canned goods, cleaning supplies, just hygiene supplies. And then we also had some gift cards to turn in as well. And we kind of just threw this together and we ended up with 56 laundry baskets. So it was pretty incredible. So we are currently handing out those baskets to students in need on Southeast Tech, so we're able to provide some goods for those people. So, yeah.
So one of the things that I take care of as the social chair executive is I put events together like the talent show. We come together and plan the decorations, plan the food, pick judges and things like that. And this year, We actually just had it a couple of weeks ago. We showcase students' talents, so it's a good way for them to come and show what they can do. We have a lot of good singers. We had some magic acts and the baton throwing, which was really cool. Our MC was our president, Kyle, this year, and then we do try to incorporate the faculty. We had 2 teachers, and then I was a judge myself. And then we also had 2 kids judges, which is something new that we've kind of incorporated to try to get the community and the families of our students involved. And they picked the Children's Choice Award. We had a really great turnout this year, and I look forward to hearing about the years to come. So it's really fun. And there are some pictures of our decorations. Another thing, the hypnotist and magician, this generally is in the spring, just kind of another way to get students together. It's a lot like the talent show, except it's more, we just have one gentleman come in who is really entertaining, and he's been with us for a few years now. Yeah, it's open to families and students and faculty, and it's just a good way for everybody to get together.
And then we also hold pennies for patients. I'm sure you guys know what that is. It's held every year, usually in the spring, right when we come back to school. And it raises money for those patients who have blood cancer, so like leukemia, for example. And our 2019 grand total was $1,228.13. And then those are the placings of each program and how well that they did. And then you can also have the option to decorate your coin box if you want to, and you get the option to win some treats if you like. So, yeah, so architectural engineering did a really good job this year,
That's a lot of
obviously.
pennies.
So, yeah.
So another event, I feel like we have a lot of events, honestly.
Good.
And it's fine because it gets everybody together, and I feel like it kind of caters to a fun, like different groups. We have the Spring Fling, which is held April 24th of 2019. It'll probably be the same next year, roughly around that time, close to the end of the year. Last year, I think this was the first year that we did this. We had a car show, so students or outside, they could bring in their car and showcase it, and it was just a lot. Like, it was really great. A lot of people showed up. We were kind of hoping that we'd have a good turnout. We weren't quite sure how it was going to go, but it ended up being really great. The food trucks were present. It was really good. I hope this is something that carries over, because it did cater to a different group that may not want to be, in the other events that we did. So I think that really helped. And I think we kind of just wanted to talk about what SGA meant to us. We're really involved with our school, which I think that's a goal that we had from the beginning. But being on the board, it gets us out of our comfort zone. I can say we were both pretty quiet at the beginning of the year, and now we've kind of stepped out and had to venture out and talk in front of crowds and learn how to be professional and be a leader. And I really appreciate Chelsea and Elizabeth and everything that they have done for us and for SGA. So yes, Jason.
She put it perfectly, so I don't have anything else to say. Do you guys have any questions for us at all?
I do. First of all, thank you for coming and presenting to us. We love to see the students. It's really fun for us as board members to have that interaction with you. And by having all those events, I think that's awesome you do that, because otherwise I would think students kind of get pigeonholed into their program and they don't meet the other students. So it's a good way to have those campus-wide activities. The food, the laundry basket feeding, I think student or people don't realize in higher ed that food insecurity is a huge issue. And I really applaud you guys for taking that on and helping your other fellow students by doing that. My question would be, are you elected by the school you're in? Or, because I did see you're elected every year, but who elects you to be on the SGA?
So it kind of depends generally. Mostly the General Assembly, the SGA members, whoever come to the meetings, they'll elect, say Fran said, well, I nominate Shelby for this position,
Got it.
I'd have to accept, and then we'd give a little speech, and then it would be a professional vote. You know, we'd leave the room if there are multiple of us. Sometimes there are parts where you kind of just step into the position if it's maybe we lost a member over the summer, and then it's offered to us and things like that. So it's students can nominate each other, teachers can nominate students, you can nominate yourself. It's just something like if that's what you want to do. So thank you for doing that.
And also for, I know it's for president and vice president, I'm not sure for the other, is it, I think secretary and treasurer as well, right? The first top four, we have to write like an essay explaining why we feel that we're fit for the position, and then they actually do a vote on STInet, which is our website, and then you vote for whoever, you know, has been nominated for that position, so, yeah. Yep.
All students.
Yep.
And thank you to the advisors. I know that's extra duty for both of you to take this on, so I appreciate that. Okay, well, thank you for doing it.
I was just going to add, I think that maybe a really big misconception about tech schools in general is that when you choose a tech school over, say, a four-year university, that you're kind of foregoing the social aspect of being able to go to the university and have the college experience. And so I think that this was such a wonderful example of how you're not really giving anything up, because you can have the intramural experience, you can have the backyard barbecues, you can have all the things that maybe you really want on that social side, and still get a great education and go for shorter and have so many career options. And so I really appreciated all the information that you shared, because I think that that's a really big misconception with maybe students and the community in general about what a tech school has to offer. So thank you for sharing all that. I think you had a little kind of small comment about this, but I wanted to point out that you guys are students and you're both surgical techs, right? So you don't have any plans of going on and doing event planning or marketing. Like, that's not what you're studying, but those are all of the skills that you have learned by participating in this role on student government. So kudos to you guys that even though it's not something that long-term is in your career plans, maybe you'll get to plan something for your surgical group. And so I just think those are skills that you can't just pick up without truly diving in and experiencing. So thank you for your leadership and for kind of going outside of maybe your comfort zone of what you normally would do. And I just have a random question. Where do you hold your intramurals at?
You look like George McGovern.
I think it's, is it McGovern?
Okay.
Middle school, I think is what it is. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's every Wednesday, so.
Okay.
Yep.
And so you just have the gym reserved, and for whatever the sport is, if it's basketball
There's 3 courts, so they have, 6 teams going at one time, so they'll have a game at 6:30, again at 7:30, and then another one at 8:15 or something like that, so.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much for coming. It was very great to hear your presentation.
I mean, and Carly was saying this too, but it's those soft skills that, you know, you're learning as being part of this group that, you know, regardless of what you go into as your career path, you'll always take with you. So, yeah, it's a great experience. Makes me want to go back to school.
Exactly.
I feel like we're advisors.
Exactly.
You're definitely putting a lot of yourselves into this organization, and you'll get so much out of it, as I'm sure you've already started to sense and feel. And I just want to affirm you that you are creating an atmosphere that's fun for your classmates, and you're doing that with your events as well as your fundraising. And so it is a fun atmosphere, and you're getting people involved. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, and that's all I'd say is it's great that you make the culture of the campus more fun. And so you're including people that might not have been able to participate or wanted to, but you're so many different options to be a part of it. So thanks for your commitment and your volunteerism to do this, because I know you're busy.
I think we're done.
Thank you. Do you have a motion to approve the SGA report?
So, second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Rich, are you up?
You don't have to feel like you have to stay either.
Yeah, this is the boring part.
No, this is not the budgeting part, but it might be the boring part.
Yeah, you won't hurt our feelings if you leave,
Yeah.
so we're used to that. You just need to hit yours. Yeah, there you go. Escape key maybe. Did you guys have a pen drive that you need to take out of the computer, or did you actually put it on? You got it? Okay.
President Nicholson, members of the board, first report that I have for you is it's a little bit out of sequence. Typically I do an oral report on a quarterly basis. We extended it out a little bit and went July through October. Just kind of a timing difference of when the charges actually post to the general ledger. So the July through September, the first quarter, was not a whole lot of activity, not a whole lot of information on there. So I thought, let's push it out another month and it'll give you a better perspective of where we're at in terms of our billings. And it flows from what the board report I gave a couple months ago, and we were really looking at where are we at, are we on target in terms of our revenue, our state aid, those two big main sources. And if you recall, I mentioned we're a little bit behind in terms of budget, in terms of tuition and fees. We're right on track in terms of our state aid. So those are our two largest components. I think the upshot to it is, and we continue to be pacing slightly ahead of where we were last year. So all things considered, that is a very much a positive thing rather than be talking about a decline in enrollment over the prior year. So that's a good thing. Like I said, we're still just a little bit short of where we were at on budget, but we'll continue to monitor that. The spring enrollments and the information that Megan's group puts together, that pacing of being ahead of where we were last year is continuing. So I'm going to make this fairly straightforward and simple. Talk a little bit about kind of from a very high level, the post-secondary fund. When you look at that revenue components, you see that on tuition we're roughly at 48%. And you think about how our tuition flows in terms of our budget aspect. It's heavy fall and spring, and then a little bit in the summer. So that's on pace. That's where we would expect to be. When you look at the comparables, I always tend to look at the totals. This time period last year, year to date, we were roughly 34% of budget. This year we're at 36% of budget. Now, some of that's just related to some pieces that came in, some timing differences. When you look at some of the other state revenue, that $500,000 came in for the GO-ED and that tech support program. That was budgeted last year, but it didn't come in last year. So that's why you see that variance when you look at that other state revenue, 16.85% in FY19 compared to 50% of budget. So overall, like I say, we're on track in terms of our revenues, a little bit behind on the tuition and fees, but not at an alarming level at this point. Expenditure side of things, probably easiest to just look at the bottom line and you think about where we're 4 months into the fiscal year, a third of the year. So in terms of our operating expenditures, we're at 27.91% budget. Expenditures tend to move more cyclical than, say, the revenues do, so you can kind of get a better measurement that this is very comparable and it's very favorable, rather than being at 33% where you expect kind of that even flow throughout the year. It looks like there's a little bit of some realized savings in there to this point. So there's some positives there. Some of it, again, comes back when you look at some of the wage categories. You know, those increases are budgeted in there. So you're going to see some favorable variances coming out of that. But again, look at it, it's not huge differences. So we're on track expenditure-wise of where we think we need to be. So I think, speaking in metaphors, we are comfortably treading water. We're not on the promenade deck, but we are very comfortable in the water where we're at. So again, very high level on the post-secondary fund of where we're currently set. And I think as we move into the next months, I'll probably give you another update on kind of some of that melt as we get through the end of December. We'll see where we compare to last year, because that has a significant play in our overall revenue results. While maybe revenue's down, but if we have a smaller amount or a smaller shrink, that narrows some of that impact of the overall revenue impact. So, bookstore fund, that's tracking right in line with where we were last year. Obviously, that's the sale of textbooks and laptops. You'll notice a pretty significant difference on the expenditure category when you look at the items purchased for resale. So that's just a timing difference of when we are purchasing and acquiring inventory for the next term. You can see last year we were at 1.4 million. This year we're at 865. Just a timing difference of when those bills are being paid and inventory is being placed. So you'll see that reflected down on the bottom line as well. When you look at the revenue over under expense, it looks like we're $543,000 ahead in the bookstore today, whereas compared to last year, we're about $54,000 down. It just has to do with that cost of goods sold item coming a little bit later. Food service, this truly is something that's very comparable year to year. You think about when students are on campus and doing that. So I think it's a positive sign when we look at our sales being up significantly over where they were this time last year, roughly $15,000. So that's a good thing. If you recall, the budget has a subsidy coming from the post-secondary fund. The more that food service fund can carry its own weight, obviously the less that the post-secondary fund has to provide assistance to. The other component that we tend to take a look at, and this isn't a perfect analysis because we're not doing inventories on a monthly basis and we're not bringing it into a full accrual on payables and that, but when you look at food costs, they're down roughly 10%, so that's a good thing too. So we're shrinking some waste, some loss associated with that, so that has a positive return at the end of the day. Overall, it's up. When you look at where we were compared to last year, still a deficit. And the other thing I want to mention on this is you also have to remember, and I say this every time, but just as a reminder, the revenue always lags a month. The expenditures are on track. So you're seeing revenue through, or expenditures through the first 4 months, the revenue only the first 3 months of what's being reported on the ledger. So if you were to take what our October revenue is, it exceeds that $42,000 deficit. So it's really setting in a positive position, at least as of today. November will be a good month for us. December will not be. With the break and the time away, obviously the volume of activity that you have will significantly decrease. A little bit to that extent in January as well, but then it'll pick up again. So we'll probably see some positive results in the next month's report, but you'll see a dip back down again and then come back up as we head into the spring semester. But overall, I'm pleased with the moving in the right direction. Child care fund, that's another fund that is being subsidized to a small extent by the post-secondary fund. There's a $39,000 transfer that'll take place. Revenue is down a little bit year to year. Again, that just has to do with enrollment, but utilization of the facility either by students or staff or Sioux Falls School District staff. So a little bit down there, but expenditures are down quite a bit, and that just has to do with some turnover and some different delivery models, at least in the short term, using a little more part-time work study to provide those services, and then as they get back up and get staffed again. So we'll probably see the full-time wages start to pace at a little faster pace than what they are currently. But again, this is another fund that, at least as we start out the year through the first 4 months, looks much more favorable than where we were at this time last year. $34,000 deficit, where this year we're at $20,000. So that's a pretty significant change as it relates to that fund as well. So again, very high level, very quick. Kind of a vanilla type of report in terms of nothing out of the ordinary, nothing too surprise. I think President Mickelson, you had asked a question about some additional state funding a couple of meetings ago. We did follow up with Scott. We kind of actually forewarned him when he was here. I said, be prepared that that question might be coming up. His answer back, we still haven't seen the money. Long story short, we still haven't seen it. But it involves some changes in what BF&M could do, and they were focused on the delivery of the governor's budget address. So since that's now passed, I can start hitting them up a little bit more and say, where's that at? What's going to happen? If you looked at the budget presentation slides, another thing, there was a deduction in the current year of about $480,000 in technical institute funds. And I thought, uh-oh, hope that's not that money, and it's not.
Okay, good.
I verified that. What that comes from is when the state appropriates money in the prior budget year, it's based on an FTE basis. So we're looking at a 20 budget based on FY19 FTE, which isn't completed yet. So when they do that, they establish the rate to appropriate that amount of money. If as a system, the FTE comes in lower, there's going to be an excess of that appropriation. If FTE came in higher, then there would be a shortfall. So historically, if there's a shortfall, the state finds the money and makes us whole on a PSA basis. The other side of it is if there is the FTE less than what was anticipated, that's appropriation that the state can look to move elsewhere. That's that 479.
That's good to know.
Yeah, so that's those differentials. I think one potential thing that's kind of out there still laying in the weeds yet that is a little bit unknown relates to state tuition assistance for National Guard members. State appropriates a certain dollar amount. I think it's $214,000, $215,000, something along those lines. The fall of utilization across the system ate up about 80% of that funds. So there's going to be a shortfall as we head into the spring. We don't quite know how that is going to be addressed, what the expectation is going to be, if that's going to be the tech institutes have to absorb that, or they're going to seek out and look elsewhere. My recommendation was to use some of that excess appropriation and redirect that, but obviously it was earmarked a different direction. So we'll just kind of wait and see. Not huge dollar amounts, it's not a huge thing, but there's probably $150,000 shortfall system-wide in that appropriation. So we'll just kind of wait and see what happens with that. We'll know more as we get into the spring. Kind of speaking to the budget address yesterday, I think you probably followed it and probably had discussion on the K-12 side and the no adjustment in the PSA. We don't have the statutory requirement to do that like K-12 has, but typically our per student allocation adjustment has moved the same way. It moves with that inflationary factor. So a lot of days between now and the end of the session, so we'll just have to wait and see what happens. But in absence of that PSA allocation, it really comes down to what's our FTE count as a system, but not only as a system, what is our FTE account in comparison to the rest of the schools. So we could still see an increase in our state aid if the other schools had a decline in their enrollment. So it's just kind of again, wait and see what happens. And again, we'll know more as we kind of get through our spring enrollment and start to project out and look at that analysis. So, clearly it has an impact. And we don't have that increase in funding, so again, we'll just have to address that. Which, after this report, will kind of lead into some discussion on our budget development. So, any specific questions related to the various financial reports?
My question you answered. If we knew what's going on, that's many things to get.
I think another thing when you look at that first slide, you look at the cash balance, and you see with the district general ledger, we're holding about $7 million in cash as of the end of August. Also, if you look at that consolidated trust and agency report, there's about 1.6 million in there that's yet to come over. So that'll show up next month in this revenue calculations, maybe even more than that, depending on what happens with the receivables. So we're looking at some cash balances that are 25-28% of our overall budget, which is a really good position to be in. But this is probably also our high point in cash for the year. So now we're going to see that and consume that. We've received 2 state aid payments. We still got 2 more to come. We'll get an influx of cash again in the spring, but it gets to be pretty lean in May, June, and July. And all of this before we see that September component of the year. But again, revenue isn't that far off. Expenditures are on track, so we're not having a big impact on utilizing that cash for staff days. So we're still in a solid fiscal position.
I move to approve the pennies report.
Do you have a second? I have a motion and a second. All those in favor of approving the July through October 2019 finance report signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. On to FY21 budget goals and timeline.
The second report that I have before you is an executive summary of the budget guidelines and timeline, and really flows from partly what we talked about as we head into the next cycle. But the guidelines that are presented are developed right from the criteria that's related to accreditation through the Higher Learning Commission. So this is the goals and the summaries that we presented related to criterion 5, which calls for resources, planning, and institutional effectiveness. So when it speaks to these goals, the institution has a well-developed process in place for budgeting and monitoring. That's one of the things that HLC comes out and looks at for accreditation. The report I just did is part of that monitoring system. So these are various components of it that we work on as we do our budgets and develop them. The specific guidelines, again, talk about meeting mission. I think that's probably the simplest way to encapsulate it. So as a decision making that we do, is it fulfilling our mission of workforce development, and make decisions to prioritize that. And like everything else, and I always tell the administrative team, they're probably tired of hearing it, but you have all the money to do anything you want. You just don't have the money to do everything that you want. So establishing priorities becomes an important aspect of it. Timelines, very similar to what we've done in the past. We may accelerate this a little bit in trying to get this budget done. I think the last year we wound up pushing that back a little bit. We're going to try to stay on task this year. There's some reasons behind wanting to do that, trying to have everything in place in terms of what are we anticipating our expenditure needs are going to be ahead of the legislative process. The upshot to that is, as we get into the end of the legislative session, if additional resources become available, it's now talking about what priorities can we now fund, or what things did we previously identify that we fund. Historically, we've kind of gone the other way. We've kind of, let's put everything out there and let's start deciding what we want to take away and what we can't afford. So we're kind of going into this next budget cycle with an approach that state funding is potentially a zero increase. Obviously, we don't know what the State Board of Technical Education is going to do in terms of tuition and fees. We may be able to have an influx there to either address some priorities that are identified associated with that, but really kind of looking at developing a very flat budget, no increases. Might be some reallocation between initiatives and programs that are out there, but this will give us the time to do that and formulate some of those things, and then if additional money becomes available, we'll already have, okay, let's insert this, we know this can come in and be funded. So a little different approach than what we've done in the past, and hopefully it'll maybe be a little more positive rather than, I always hear all the time, we keep cutting. I don't consider it a cut because you never really had it in the first place. It's, you just put it down and then you cut it, but this is taking it a different step. So, questions, concerns, or comments on our timelines or process?
That's good. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second on the FY21 budget goals and timeline. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. On to December graduation update.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rich.
President Mickelson and members of the board, we'd be remiss not to mention December graduation. So that's an exciting time for us. It's not only the most wonderful time of the year, but the culmination of working with our students and seeing them walk across the stage is why we do what we do. So, and our December graduation takes place on Friday, December 13th at the Sioux Falls Convention Center. I'm sure a couple of you will be joining us for that event. It starts at 5 o'clock. This year we have a total of 186 candidates for graduation, 128 for the associate's degree, and 58 for a one-year diploma. So we do have a good number for December graduation. And our December graduation is, if you've been to the one at the arena, it's very large, you know what the arena's like. The December graduation is a little bit more intimate. It's a nice ceremony, so we're looking forward to that. Diana Vanderwoody from Sanford Health, she's their HR Senior Executive Director of Leadership, Education, and Development. She will be our commencement speaker on the 13th. And then the last couple of graduations, we've been awarding our Industry Partner Award, and next week we'll be giving it to Smithfield Foods. So we're excited about that. As you know, in 2016, they launched their Learners to Leaders program, and we know all about that program. And most recently, they contributed to help us start our Vet Tech program. And we have a good number of applicants for that program for next fall, so we're looking forward to that. And then Mark Wiggs and Scott Reed, who many of you probably are familiar with, will be there with us for that day. Scott right now is chair of our advisory council, and he's also on our foundation board. So yeah, we look forward to seeing you there, and it's a good way to end the semester before Christmas. Any questions on graduation?
No, thank you. I know board member Baker and Tolkey will be representing the board there that evening.
Wonderful.
So thank you. I have a prior commitment with the Indian Education Committee, but it'll be a great event. So thank you very much.
And it's, you know, the graduates and the faculty and speakers and everybody's in the same room getting ready for December graduation. So it's a great opportunity to just have the opportunity to meet people and
It's
right?
always fun.
New year, they're starting their careers, so it's good timing. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have a motion to approve the December graduation update report? Second. I have a motion second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Do you have a motion to move into executive session SDCL 125-2, paren 1?
Second.
I have a motion second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. We'll move into executive session. You can't hear. It's like so quiet.
Music, you need that. Oh, just go. Just go.